And welcome back to the special edition of Hannity Road to the White House. Donald Trump on the issues. Now, earlier this month, Trump released a list of possible Supreme Court nominees. Now, on the day the names were made public, I spoke to the presumed nominee at his campaign headquarters in New York City. Here are some of the highlights. One of the top things I would ask you often is your judicial philosophy. And you mentioned, as I said, Scalia and Thomas. They are what we call originalists,
right.
Constitutionalists.
Correct.
You are a constitutionalist.
Correct. And I want high intellect. I want great intellect. These people are all of very high intellect. They're pro-life. And so that's my list. And we are going to choose from, most likely from this list, but at a minimum, we will keep people within this general realm. And again, I have a lot of people that are conservative that really like me, love everything I stand for, but they really would like to know my view, because perhaps outside of the defense of our country, perhaps the single most important thing the next president is going to have to do is pick Supreme Court justice.
This will have an impact for generations to come.
Oh, generations.
Donald Trump's list of potential Supreme Court nominees has been getting a lot of praise from conservatives. Recently, I spoke with Jay Sekulow from the American Center for Law and Justice and Carrie Severino, a member of the Federalist Society and chief counsel and policy director for the Judicial Crisis Network, and John Malcolm. He is the director of the Edwin Meese Center for Legal and Judicial Studies at Heritage, about Donald Trump's list. Let's take a look. Jay, I've talked to a lot of people that know this, the people on this list. Not one person has anything but high praise for this list.
Look, this is a great list of potential nominees to the Supreme Court. You've got justices that have served with Justice Scalia as law clerks, Justice Thomas, Chief Justice Rehnquist. They come with broad and serious credentials. They have published opinions. They've served on the court for a number of years. You're not guessing where their judicial philosophy is emanating from. They understand the role of a justice of the Supreme Court is not to make law. So I think, look, no matter what anybody thinks, the fact of the matter is the lasting legacy of a president is often the Supreme Court of the United States. And I think you're looking at the next, we know we have a vacancy. There may be several others. This is the Supreme Court for a couple of generations. There's a lot at stake. These nominees are great across the board. Not one in there you would not be happy to have. And
Jay, you say that as somebody who has argued a number of times before the Supreme Court. Carrie, from my understanding is Donald Trump did a lot of research. He checked in with the Heritage Foundation. He checked in with the Federalist Society. He ran the list of names by senators and other people. This was a pretty extensive vetting process. Are you happy with it?
Yeah, I think all the research really shows. He asked the right people, and he took some great advice. I love that he includes people that are often overlooked, like state Supreme Court justices.
Yeah, that was
gives
unique.
us a really good view of what they would really be like on a Supreme Court, because they've been on a state Supreme Court. Now you have an even better sense of how they might perform in the U.S. Supreme Court, because as we know, it's a lifetime appointment. You want to make sure you get it right, someone with a really solid judicial philosophy and who has the courage to stand up for it under pressure.
You know, I would say this, if I can, John. Republicans often get it wrong, Republican presidents. In other words, we're told that a justice like John Roberts is going to be an originalist. He disappointed a lot of people, including myself, especially in the Obamacare ruling. So do you feel that this list would, are you confident this list, there's no disappointments if in fact they got to the court?
You could have added Earl Warren, William Brennan, and John Paul Stevens to that list.
That's true. Okay, good points.
Look, you know, 5 of the names on this list were also on my list, which the Heritage Foundation published. The remaining 6 judges all appear to be very eminently qualified men and women who have a proper view of the modest role that a judge plays, who are going to interpret the text of statutes and the Constitution based on the actual words of themselves and not use them as empty vessels to pour in their personal or political biases. These are eminently, qualified people, and as Carrie just pointed out, 6 of them are sitting circuit court judges. 5 of them are sitting state Supreme Court justices, and I might add that one of the ones on the circuit court spent some time on the Wisconsin Supreme Court as well. These are men and women who are very well qualified with a broad breadth of experience.
Yeah, well said. Do you see any problems, Jay, for any of the 11 going up against Democrats, knowing that they play politics? Robert Bork, Clarence Thomas, 2 names come to mind, with judicial picks.
Look, Miguel Estrada, you can remember what they did to him. And the fact of the matter is, Look, I think you got to keep the control of the United States Senate, and that's going to be very important here because I think any one of these nominees, you're already seeing, potential nominees, you're already seeing the left criticizing these individuals. Why? Because they know that they have the judicial philosophy that's more like Scalia, and that's what they don't want. Yeah. So I think we got to be prepared, if Donald Trump is the president of the United States, to defend these nominees aggressively, and that means you can't just win the presidency, you've got to maintain control of the Senate. It'd sure be good to get 60 conservatives in that United States Senate to make sure you don't have a problem. But every one of these will be a fight, but it'll be a fight worth taking.
Or you could just follow the Harry Reid, the new rules, and circumvent past precedents, change them. Carrie, and I think this is really important, as you look at this list of people, do you see any problems?
I don't. I see a real strong contrast, for example, with what the president has put forward in Judge Garland. He has a really bad record on the Second Amendment. On this list, we've got people like Judge Sykes and Judge Hardiman who've really stood up for the Second Amendment. His judge tends to defer to the EPA and other unaccountable bureaucratic agencies every chance he gets. We've got people like Judge Kethledge, who has stood up to the IRS and stands up to these agencies. So I think for all of the points where we see Judge Garland going with the liberal majority, we see people here who show what it is like to stand up for the Constitution against the kind of things President Obama has been trying to do.
John, we'll give you the last word.
Well, look, I think that some of these people could well face a confirmation fight. Bill Pryor certainly had a very hard time getting onto the 11th Circuit in the first place. But these are people worth fighting for, and you need to have a president who is prepared to stand by them, to the bitter end, and to get them across the goal line.
I've got to believe this will go a long way with maybe some conservatives that had doubts about Donald Trump's commitment to conservatism, one of the most important jobs a president will have. Thank you all for being with us. Appreciate it. And coming up.